Hello. In this first video on Savate, what we are going to do is to show you the basics of this style, so that you know all the tricks, and that will later allow you to elaborate your own techniques and links, so that you can incorporate them into your repertoire in function of the techniques you prefer. We're going to begin with the guard position. We're going to see the position of the feet. We will try to place the point of the foot of the back leg at the same height as the heel of the forward leg. They are always somewhat bent, and the body weight on the points of the feet. We must maintain the chin at chest level and the hands above the line of the eyes. Each time that we attack with a fist, this will allow our shoulder to protect our chin. We strike with the forward arm or the back. So, what we'll do will be to throw our punches correctly, accompanied by the shoulder and hip movement. In order to work the change of body weight, what we do will be to work with the direct punches. We'll throw the forward fist, keeping the body weight over the back leg. When we throw the back fist, we'll carry the body weight over the forward leg. This will allow us to correctly move the hip and the shoulders to strike. If we throw the forward fist, having the body weight over the forward leg, we can't move the hip. If, on the other hand, I keep the weight over the back leg, the hip moves, pushing throughout the strike trajectory. In the guard position, be careful to always keep the back arched. This will allow you to protect yourselves, supporting the elbow like this against the bone of the hip. In this way, if I want to protect my face, it's enough to do this little movement. If I keep the bust straight, each time that I want to protect my face, I leave all this area open. And if I lower my arms to cover myself, my face is open. So, knees bent, body weight over the points of the feet, back somewhat arched, and chin inside. This way we can move ourselves and keep an airtight guard. As for the attacks with the feet, in Savate, all the strikes are done with the shoe, whether it be with the sole of the foot, the point, or the heel. This will give us a more refined and precise attack. When I strike with the foot, if my partner keeps a good close guard, if I am sufficiently precise, I'll reach him in the internal part, just where I find the hole. We'll begin with the fouette, or hammer strike. In this kick, the important thing is to correctly turn the support leg in order to be able to move the hip to the side. Once the hip is placed, we're going to orient the knee toward the objective, and we raise the heel in this way to load the kick. We throw the strike, touching with the foot. We retract and return to the guard position. The attacks are done at 3 levels: below, mid-level, or to the face. Whatever the objective might be, we will always have to retract and keep the foot armed to be able to throw double kicks or to change the technique without having to support the foot on the ground. For the kicks, the most important leg isn't the one that strikes, but the support leg. We must turn the foot to be able to open the hip and throw the strike leg, like this. Low strike, to the mid-level, or to the face. It can be as much for the forward leg as the back. The advantage of Savate and of the use of the shoes is that there is only one distance, whether for fists or kicks. If we move the hip and the shoulders well, one distance is enough for any technique that we employ. If we are too close to the adversary, we won't be able to move the shoulders correctly, and will lose power in the attack. Here we'll strike and later we push, without force. In order for it to be effective, the arm must be stretched out at the moment of impact. If I'm too close, at launching a kick, I'll strike with my tibia, not with the foot. For my attacks, I must stretch the arm well, moving the hip and the shoulder, and in this way obtain only one distance to be able to attack with the fists and legs. As we've seen in the previous kick, one strikes with the upper part of the foot, or with the point. Now we're going to employ the sole and the heel for the chassé, or penetrating kicks. This kick allows us to push the adversary away. I'm going to arm the kick raising my knee toward the opposite shoulder. The principle is the same. I turn the foot in order to be able to move the hip to the side. Once my knee is above, I can extend the kick to strike with the heel. To get the maximum power, in each strike, I'll totally stretch the leg out. For the reverse kick, we'll employ the same principles as for the hammer kick. In the hammer, we began with the leg bent in order to strike with the leg extended. For the reverse kick, we begin with the leg stretched like this, and we strike the objective backward with the sole. Leg stretched, hip to the side, turning the support leg, and we strike the objective. We can work the low level, middle, or to the face, though the reverse kick is essentially used at the lower level, or to the face. The low kick can be used as a striking technique in order to hit the tibia, or as a sweep technique. Generally, we kick with the back leg. Initially, the leg that strikes must be stretched. The movement comes from the hip. I break the foot with the ground until I'm ready for the attack, and then I throw the stretched leg pushing with the hip. Kick for striking. Or if we are to the side of the adversary, for a sweep. Exterior sweep. Or interior. We've seen the penetrating kick in which we must move the hip to the side. We strike with the sole of the shoe. Now we're going to see a variation, the frontal chassé. For this kick, just like before, we're going to raise the knee to the chest, but keeping the hips in front of the adversary. We raise the knee like this, and we strike moving the hip. It is very important to arm the kick well, raising the knee to the chest. For the strike, we can hit with the sole or with the point of the foot. The objectives will be the solar plexus or the liver to one side. Before, we saw the lateral reverse kick, placing the hip to the side and striking with the sole. Now we'll study the frontal reverse kick. The principle is the same. We must arm the strike well, but now with the hips facing front. The strike is done with the outside edge of the shoe. Now we'll look at the previous kicks facing simple attacks. The hammer, the penetrating, the reverse kick, the low kick, the frontal penetrating, and the frontal reverse. All these techniques can be done turning. We're going to study these basic techniques with a backward turn. We're going to attack with a direct punch, hammer kick, and instead of returning to the guard position, I move my leg here to one side and with the hip sideways. I raise myself over the point of the feet and turn toward the outside to place my other hip sideways to the adversary. Now I can throw another penetrating kick. For the basic penetrating kick, from the guard position, we move the hip to the side to throw the strike. When I do the kick turning, I'm going to return to the same position. I throw the first kick, I support the leg here in front, and I turn completely in order to return to the initial position with the hip sideways. We're going to see the principal aspects. Be careful doing the spin and don't throw the kick with your back to the adversary. If you strike like this, it'll be me who is thrown forward. If the adversary moves while I throw my attack, I won't be able to reach him. We must move the hip correctly and look at where the adversary is. This way of turning is going to be employed at the beginning when you learn to do the spin kicks. Once you dominate the balance, after throwing the first attack, you will have the possibility of directly supporting the heel on the ground, pointing toward the adversary. Then, at doing the turn, you'll already have the hip sideways for the second kick. For the turning kicks, the difficulty comes in guarding the distance. Let's see a rule to remember it. Imagine a circle on the ground. If I go from this position and move over the circle on the ground, I'll always be in the distance. Once my first kick is employed, if I now want to throw a spin kick, I'll have to support my foot on the ground over the circle. In this way, I'll always be in the distance. Whatever the starting position might be, I can turn around the adversary and keep the distance. If, after my first attack, I return to the guard position, when I throw my spin kick, as you see, I'll fail the strike. So, be careful to always retake the distance on the imaginary circle after the first attack. We've seen the penetrating kick. We're going to do the same with the reverse kick. From here, I throw my punches. The hip sideways, and reverse kick, just like before. When I throw my basic kick, I move the hip to the side. I throw the kick and strike with the sole of the foot. For the spin kick, I'll return to the same position. It is very important to correctly arm the kicks at the moment of the attack and at the moment of the retraction. This will allow you to do double attacks. If, for example, I attack with the penetrating kick with the front leg, if I retract the kick correctly, I'll have the possibility to link it with a hammer kick. Penetrating, hammer. The same to the reverse kicks. We've seen before that the reverse kick is like a hammer, but in reverse direction. For the hammer, we start from this position, and we strike with the leg extended. For the reverse kick, we begin with the leg extended, and we strike retracting the leg. In this way, I'll be able to do double attacks without changing the position of the legs. I can throw my reverse here and later hammer kick. It can be done at any height. When we work at the high level, you will have to move your shoulder toward the adversary in order to keep balanced. If the shoulders are back, when we throw the kicks, we'll lose balance. If we move the shoulders toward the adversary, we'll be able to establish the position. The same position. If my shoulders are back, I'll lose balance. Always move the shoulders forward. Now let's look at the hands. Always keep them up, above the line of sight. This allows you to conserve all the body weight gathered in the shoulders. It's enough to move the shoulders forward or back to recover balance. If you keep the arms open, apart from exposing yourselves to the adversary's counterattack, it'll be more difficult to keep balance. The hands always in this position, up, the chin against the chest, and the arms leaning toward the adversary. This is valid for all the spin kicks. If my shoulders are back, I'll fall backward. Let's go back to the possibility of doing double strikes, or even triple, through spins. My first attack will be a hammer kick with the back leg. Now I turn, hip sideways, and I throw a reverse kick. As you see, without moving my thigh, I've linked it with a third hammer kick. We must keep the thigh in the position to remain in the axis of attack. If I move the thigh, it'll be very difficult to control the balance and throw the third kick. We've seen that all these basic kicks can be done with spins. They can also be done with crosses, with cross steps, which will allow us to shorten the distance. What we must do is, if the kick is penetrating, pass the foot behind the mid-axis of the body, like this. When we do the penetrating kick, we'll cross the foot behind. When we work the hammer kicks, we'll cross the foot in front. In this way, the hip stays in the direction necessary for the attack. This is also valid for the reverse kick. We've seen the attacks with crosses. You should know that it is possible to combine the crossed attack with the jump attack. We'll get a crossed jump attack, which will allow us to get greater distance. For example, I advance, and my adversary attacks me with a penetrating. Then I recede and get out of the distance. To retake the distance, I can throw a penetrating kick in crossed jump, and I find myself again in the striking distance. We've briefly seen the foot and fist techniques. Now we're going to study the blocks and checks. We begin with the block of the hammer kick with the front leg to mid-level. To block it, we're going to always keep ourselves protected with the back hand, like this, and turn the opposite shoulder to block his foot with the inside part of the other hand. He wants to strike me here, so if I turn the shoulder, I am moving the objective to the side of the trajectory. Remember to keep the backhand protecting above so that if he throws a second strike, you'll be protected. Another way of doing the blocks consists of using the other arm. If he wants to strike me here in the side, I can use my elbow as a pivot in order to block downward with the hand. I'll then raise my other hand to protect my face. In this way, I can block his kicks with the forward leg or back leg. You must be careful with this block and keep the arm bent, because if you have the arm extended and the strike hits the elbow, you will do a lot of damage to yourselves. Keep the elbow bent. Never have the arm extended. If it is extended, it's dangerous, whether it be the forward arm or the back. The arm bent. In Savate, it is prohibited to hook the leg of the rival with the hand. However, we can use the arm to push his leg. If he attacks me with a mid-level hammer kick, I can't hook his leg like this, but I can use my other hand to deflect the kick and make him turn. Once I deflect his kick in this way, I'll prepare my next attack. I obtain the necessary distance with my support leg, and I can kick him here. Be careful to place your support foot well, because when I deflect his kick, my leg must move here to be able to kick him. If you don't move the leg, you'll be outside of the distance. When you do a block, always think about a counterattack after. When you attack the opponent, he'll be forced to protect himself, and he won't be able to continue with his techniques. If you let him turn his leg, then he'll be able to link with spinning attacks. Another way of avoiding a hammer kick consists of moving yourself and getting out of the axis of attack. If I remain here facing the adversary, his strike reaches me at full force. If I exit his axis here, his strike, though reaching me, won't have any force. Be careful when you move to one side. Keep yourselves protected with the bone of the hip here and the elbow supported above. If he reaches me with a kick, I'll be protected. If you remain with the arm too high, his strike will reach me in this hole. You must move to one side and protect yourselves with the elbow and the hip.
Deux avant, deux arrière.
All these techniques will be very useful if later we want to link with kick or fist attacks. We have to be careful doing the sideways movement and keep the distance. If we move ourselves receding, we will lose distance and we won't be able to strike him. If we do the sideways movement, staying in the circle that we've already explained, we'll avoid being struck and we'll be able to reach him, for example, his support leg. This can also be applied to the counter punches. In this case, I'll need to advance a little more in order to reach the punch distance. Now we're going to see the kicks, the dodges, and the blocks facing straight attacks. We're going to begin with the front penetrating kick. If I find myself in this distance, he will reach me with a front penetrating kick. If I stay in front of him, he'll strike me. So, I'll have to move in order to exit from his axis. I'm going to employ the same block that we used before for the hammer kick, employing my elbow as a pivot to deflect his leg to the side. In this way, I'll be able to move, to exit his axis and link with my foot or fist attacks. This same principle can be employed facing straight fist attacks. The adversary throws a direct punch. I'll have to exit his axis of attack and with my hand push his fist to the side. For the blocks facing the direct punches, you must always push toward the interior side of the adversary. If you push toward his exterior side, then he'll be able to strike you with the other hand. This is valid for the forward arm and the back. If I push like this, his strike reaches me. You must always push toward the interior side of the adversary. Try to always do a little movement like this. His strike comes straight. If you modify the axis, his strike will go long. If he attacks me here, I must push like this. If I close in on him, he won't reach me. If we block too far, then he'll be able to reach me with a new strike. A little movement and return to the guard. I remind you that, as we said at the beginning, what we are trying to do is show you the principles of Savate. Once these principles are attained, exiting from the axis of attack and moving yourself, you will be able to adapt the connections, checks, and blocks to your own techniques, to your technical repertoire. If you find yourselves in the axis of the adversary's attack, if you recede straight back, you will always be within his reach. In a competition, in a ring, if I recede straight back, I'll be against the ropes, and it will be very difficult to face him and escape. You must get accustomed to moving yourselves like this, to one side or another. For the blocks and checks, also think about exiting the axis. In this way, you'll be able to link your attacks staying outside his field of vision. If I stay here in front of him, he'll be able to see all my attacks. If, on the other hand, I link my attacks exiting his axis, and he protects himself like that with the arm, he won't be able to see my attacks, if they are lateral. If I am like this in front, he'll see all my attacks. If I turn to one side, here, it will be very difficult for his attacks to reach me. When you practice your Savate techniques, always work these movements. What I'll do is take a stop like this, to exit his axis of attack. If you move yourselves well during your attacks and finish with kicks, thanks to the use of the shoes, you'll be able to strike areas well protected by the adversary. If the adversary's guard is airtight, if I move myself to one side, I'll have the possibility of striking him on the inside of his guard. If I am here, my kicks won't be able to reach him inside. I am in front of him. On the other hand, if I exit the axis and move to one side, from here I can reach him easily, in the solar plexus or in the liver. Move sideways, toward one side or another, to create the necessary hole. Another particularity of Savate is the overflow. It consists of beginning to move sideways like before, but moving the two supports, the 2 feet. I take a second step here in order to strike him with my support leg and surprise him with this attack. During a competition, normally you move to one side and attack the adversary with this leg. If he intuits your technique, he'll wait for you to attack him with the forward leg. Then I move like before and take a second step to surprise him with a kick with the other leg. Now we're going to work a little competition strategy. This will be valid as much for the assault as for the combat. You should know that the assault is a competition category in which all the strikes must be controlled, and the combat is a competition in which the strikes are at full power. In the first place, the moving ourselves. As we said at the beginning, the knees bent, the back bent for more protection, and the chin against the chest. Never arch the back like this toward the inside. If you do, your support leg will stay extended and the body weight on the heels, and the balance isn't good. Never this position. The knees always bent, with the body weight on the point of the feet. This way, you will be able to move yourselves and do your attacks of fist, kicking, and your blocks. Now the strategy for the movements. When the adversary is right-handed, I'll move toward the side of his forward leg. If the adversary is in the right-handed position, at doing the movements, I'll do it toward this side, in order to avoid his reaching me with his back leg. If I move toward his back leg, he'll always reach me with that leg. Be careful when you enter the ring. Be sure to know whether your opponent is left-handed or right-handed. If the adversary is left-handed, his guard will be like this. Now I'll move myself following the same principle, always toward the side of his forward leg. If I move toward his back leg, he'll always reach me with that leg. Always, when you get into the ring, find out if your opponent is right or left-handed. That way you'll know where to move yourself. Now we'll study the look. Always try to keep visual contact with the adversary. It can be at eye level or at shoulder level. Some people don't manage to look at the adversary's eyes. In that case, try to concentrate on his shoulders without looking at the feet. If you look at the feet and the adversary is fast, he'll distract you with his legs and strike you with a fist without your even seeing it. So, always look at eye or shoulder level. We must develop peripheral vision. At the beginning, it is difficult. But with practice, looking at a fixed point here, you'll have the possibility of also seeing his feet. Later, it's simple. It's sufficient to know that if he moves his shoulder to this side, he'll want to strike me with the back leg. And if he moves the shoulders to the other side, he'll strike me with the forward leg. It's sufficient just to look at the shoulders, to know from which side he wants to strike us. So, be careful. When you attack, don't look at your target. If you're going to attack low and you are looking there, by looking at our eyes, your opponent will know where you're going to attack. When you launch your attacks to any height, get accustomed to keeping the sight in the line you have chosen, whether at the eyes or the shoulders. Whether I attack low or high, my look doesn't change. Now we're going to apply the previous principle to trick the adversary. I'm going to attack him low with my forward leg, and I'm going to look downward at the objective so that the opponent perceives my intention. I attack low 2 or 3 times, launching kicks to his leg. At the right moment, I'll do the same. Look downward to trick him, and then attack the face. When you work all your techniques and all your links, try to do it slowly at first, in order to feel the body positions you use. If you work in slow motion, the techniques are much more difficult to do. And when you add speed in the execution, if you dominate balance 100%, you will obtain 100% power. If you train losing balance, when you look for power in the strikes, you'll never obtain the maximum of your potential. Try to always train feeling the techniques, paying attention to the sensations of your body. First slowly, and later at accelerating the execution, try to feel the same sensations. I remind you again that if you want the maximum power, it's necessary to have 100% balance. We haven't studied the warm-up section, nor the post-training work. I remind you that before training, you must do warm-up, stretching, and at the end of each session, more stretching and a brief transition. I hope that this work is useful to you to progress and improve your Savate techniques. Meanwhile, I wish you luck.